I am Raziel.
What's up, guys? Raziel here, and I've got another video for you today. And to preface this video, keep in mind this is going to be, like many of my later videos, an audio video. So if you got shit to do around the house, now would be a good time to crank this shit up and start doing those chores around the house. You got a dog that needs to be, needs a bath. Got some homework that needs to be done. You're driving in your car, slap this onto an 8-track tape and throw it in your 8-track deck on your 77 Thunderbird. You know what I'm talking about. This video is about the MMORPG genre and something that's been kicking around in my brain here for the past few weeks, and I've finally decided to make a video about it. Now, I wanted to decide if I should fully script this video or if it's better if you just listen to the ramblings of a insane 36-year-old man. But I decided it would be best to have I highlighted a script of the points I wanted to hit on, but other than that, it's going to be pretty rambly, so apologies first and foremost for that. But this video, my friends, is about the mentality shift in the MMORPG genre that's not due entirely to the genre itself, but also just society and, the culture, the shit, piss poor culture we live in as a whole that shifted things in this direction for everything. And it's also part of the human condition. And what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the focus and the mentality, the mental state of focusing on the journey versus focusing on the destination. Now, as always, I will have some eye candy on the screen, so if you are just a fat, lazy ass and you're just sitting at your computer and you're just watching, you can do that, and you won't miss out on anything, and you'll have something to look at in the meantime. Anyway, let's just jump right into this video. Thanks for listening to the preface. So, as always, guys, make sure if anything comes to mind and you're about to rage on the keyboard if anything I say, please wait till the end of the video to leave your comment so that you have the full context of what I'm about to say. You have no idea how many times I get comments where I can obviously tell the person didn't watch the whole fucking video because their concern or comment or angry rant would have been addressed later in the video had they continued to listen. But let's move forward. Enough of this shit. So, if you're unaware, the first MMO I ever played, if you don't count MUDs, MUDs, multi-user dimensions, was Asheron's Call, which came out in 1999. And technically, it was considered a Gen 1 MMO. You can argue Gen 2, but it was pretty much Generation 1. Now, Generation 1 and Generation 2 MMOs were very, very, very similar, with Generation 2 mainly adding to what Generation 1 had already done. Now, each generation kind of had its big three games, with Generation 1, what was called the Big Three was Ultima Online, EverQuest, and Asheron's Call, while the Big Three of Generation 2 was Dark Age of Camelot, Anarchy Online, and Ultima Online 2. I never played Ultima Online 2. I did dabble a bit in Anarchy Online, and I definitely played Dark Age of Camelot quite heavily for a while. We also saw some other games pop up during this time, such as Final Fantasy XI, EverQuest 2, but I'm not going to go into all the details of every one of those games. The point here I'm trying to get out of my brain here is that these MMOs focus, if you've heard a lot of my other videos on the MMO genre, you'll know that these games had a focus on the Dungeons and Dragons mentality, the pen and paper RPG. And it was very, very much about the journey, because end game wasn't a thing. You didn't enter the game. You didn't start a character in Asheron's Call or Dark Age of Camelot or EverQuest or Ultima Online with the mindset of, okay, I'm level 1 right now. I've got to get to the highest level in the game because that's when the game actually starts. That wasn't a thing. The entire game was a journey, and the journey is what you focused on. And you may be saying, well, yeah, Raz, you've said this shit before, so what is this about? I want you all to take a brief second. Take a brief second and think of your life. Your life as a whole up to this point. Now, you may be young. You may be a teenager. You may be in your 20s. You may be starting to get up there in your mid to late 30s like me. You may be in your 40s, even 50s listening to this video. However, I bet when you think back of your life up to this point, you can't think of it as you went into your life looking towards the end, correct? The best and worst times of your life will come to mind, and those are milestones. Those are moments that stick out in your head, but they don't define you as a human being. Not every single moment, not one particular moment, I will say, is the catalyst for everything in your life. We are the sum of our experiences. Our viewpoints on life now are the sum of both the good and the bad things that have happened to us up to today, up to the point of you watching this video right now. Every choice you made in life led up to here, not just one singular one. Each choice you made branched off into another, and so on and so forth. So I'm fairly certain, I remember being a kid and thinking, man, when I'm 18, when I'm 16, I'm going to be able to drive. And then everything will be great. And then, well, when I'm 18, I get to move out of my parents' house. And, when I'm 21, I can drink. When I'm 19, I can smoke cigarettes. When I'm 25, I can, rent a fucking car. I don't know. But if you look through your journey of life, I'm sure you never went into it thinking, I've got to get to 80 because then I can die. I've got to get to, 50. Because that's when real life starts. No, you were experiencing your real life now all the time. Even right now, you're experiencing your life now. Life is about the journey. And we tend to focus, though, when we're young and stupid, on the moments that we think will change everything, and they seldom do. A perfect example of this is the things I just stated, certain age ranges when things become available to you. But it's part of the human condition. It's quite unfortunate that as human beings, we think that the next thing will make us happy. Do you get what I'm saying? Oh, once I can drive, I'll be happy. Once I have this job, I'll be happy. Once I have this girl or this guy in my life, I'll be happy. Once I have this much money, I'll be happy. And guess what? It never works out that way. No one thing, no one other person, or no one other place can make us happy. As the great Miyamoto Musashi said, happiness and everything good in life comes from within. Okay? Life is a journey. So now that you've got this, big, bulky, sappy life advice from Raziel, the dipshit on YouTube that talks about video games, I'm going to apply it to the MMORPG genre. The Gen 1 and Gen 2 MMOs, people just enjoyed the journey because that's what the game was. That's what the entire thing was an experience. No one went into them thinking, I need to be at a certain level in the game before I can start to have fun. I need to do, before I can do the fun things, the good things. No, you went and explored, and you were in a dangerous world, and you paid the price for your mistakes. And a lot of times, in a lot of these games, the price you paid for mistakes such as death, picking a fight with the wrong person in PvP or PvE, resulted in, bad times for you. But you laughed it off and you kept going. And there were plenty of times in those games, big grindy missions or leveling or quests or, goals that you'd set for yourself. And it got quite frustrating sometimes. And to be honest, in some situations, kind of made you want to quit the game for a while. But isn't that how life is too? we do the same thing in life where we constantly feel the struggle. But when you struggle, when things are hard, when things took a lot of effort and dedication and time to get, it makes it, when you get it, that much more rewarding, especially if you didn't go into that task with the mindset of once you got that thing, you were done and you could finally enjoy yourself. You realize after it's over that the journey itself, while hard, was what was fun about it and not the destination. Not even the reward. It's the experience itself. And where I think a lot of games go wrong, because World of Warcraft, and one of the things that got this jumbling around in my head was playing WoW Classic. World of Warcraft is technically a Generation 3 MMO, but Vanilla WoW back in 2004 and was designed heavily around building off of Gen 1 and Gen 2. Up to this point, there had been no theme park MMOs. Theme park MMOs were not a thing up until World of Warcraft. And I'm of the opinion that the theme park MMO has ultimately taken the genre in a bad direction. But Blizzard's not to blame for that. That was a design choice, and at the time it worked, and it was new, and it was interesting. Where I think World of Warcraft got it the most correct was the main character of the story was the world, not you, and not Thrall, not, Anduin or any fucking character in the game. And the thing is that's true for EverQuest. That was true for EverQuest 2. That was true for Asheron's Call. That was true for Dark Age of Camelot. The world itself and the activities of the world were the main protagonists, or you could even argue antagonists, of the entire thing. And if you recall, World of Warcraft Vanilla and even Burning Crusade and Asheron's Call and Dark Age of Camelot and EverQuest didn't have huge, immersive narratives. They weren't a story-driven game per se. You could find lots of lore, and if you read quest text, or you, like in Asheron's Call, if you picked up items and read the descriptions and read lore off of things, if you really were interested in that, you could get quite a bit of really well-written story, but it's not what drove the gameplay. It's not what drove you, or most players anyway, to log into the game every day. You compare that now with how there's such a focus on story, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when you focus so hard on story that the rest of the game is sacrificed, or not necessarily sacrificed, but paid less attention to, that's where we have an issue. And even my main MMO right now, Final Fantasy XIV, is guilty of this. Because Final Fantasy XIV, the two biggest narrative games that stick out in my head right now in the MMO genre is Final Fantasy XIV and Star Wars The Old Republic. Both had great stories. Final Fantasy XIV's story, especially in the latest expansion, Shadowbringers, is unparalleled. It's fantastic. But it's like you're playing a single-player game where your character is the hero, the protagonist, with MMO features on the side, like co-op features on the side to accomplish said tasks. So the main character in these games is not the world. And then if you compare, retail WoW, where not only are they trying to drive a narrative in a game that wasn't designed that way from the ground up, but Blizzard's ability to tell a story is laughable at best. Like, it's so fucking contrived and bad, I can't even get started. It's some of the most god-awful fucking storytelling in the history of humankind. Like, I bet you there's a bunch of fucking mongoloids sitting around a goddamn space heater with construction paper and crayons writing this shit. That's how bad it is. But I digress. Narrative is good. But when it comes at the sacrifice of the journey and the entire game becomes about the destination, it's bad. What a lot of developers don't seem to understand is when we want to be heroes, right? When we want to escape our real lives into video games, if we want to be a hero in an MMO, because we're already used to playing single player games since consoles first started to come out, in the late 70s, early 80s, is we're watching another story. We're watching another character's story, which was great. It did take us away from reality, but MMOs gave us a chance to be somebody in a different world, to actually not watch somebody else's experience and move that character around, but to be our own character, project ourselves into these games, and make choices depending on our own, individual personalities and ideas. And it worked really well in Gen 1 and Gen 2 to do these things, and in early Gen 3, because the world was the focus and not you. And what a lot of developers seem to fail to realize is, yeah, we did want to be heroes. But guess what, bitch? I don't want to be the hero or the villain to all these NPCs in a game. I don't give a shit if an NPC in a game thinks I'm a hero. They're programmed to. Or thinks I'm a villain. They're programmed to. That just comes with completing a quest or something, or a part of the storyline, and hey, you're a hero or you're a villain now because that's the story. That's the story, right? While in Gen 1 and Gen 2, in these open world sandbox games, you wanted to be the hero or the villain to the other players in the game. That has what has been missing, and what made the journey the focus and not the destination the focus. So, and you could do that. You could do that in these old school games. I remember plenty of times. I received death threats in Asheron's call when I chain drained some bitch through a wall and then took all his gear when he died. And at the other time, you wanted to be that hero that rushed in and saved your party, right? The guy who no-lifed the game for a while and had this amazing gear that you found or you crafted, or you're a really high level in the game. Because again, level cap wasn't even a thing like in a lot of games, and it wasn't where the game started. Like, to be level capped was like a 2-year feat, and it didn't necessarily change the game when you were level capped. Like a whole, oh, you're the highest level in the game now, all this new shit opens up to you. That didn't exist. You kept pushing yourself to go to more dangerous areas, but you didn't have to be level capped to do it. That was the experience. You could be the hero to the other players in the game, or the villain even to other players of the game. A kill on sight little bastard. So, something I've realized after playing WoW Classic again, seeing it in its original form, and re-experiencing 2000, technically the patch WoW Classic is in, it was more in the 2006, 2005, 2006, but re-experiencing the difference further shows that when you focus on the destination and not the journey, whether as the player or as the designer of the game, it's going to end in disappointment more times than it won't. The whole mentality of I'll be happy when I have X, or get to X place, or X level, or have X item, or X things. Because you're not. And also focusing on the destination is what, in my opinion, and please if you disagree let me know, inspired the catering to the instant gratification crowd. World of Warcraft in mid Wrath of the Lich King, when they were bought out by Activision, started devaluing things of the past. Started on the track that would eventually destroy the community with, looking for group, queuing, all this bullshit, looking for LFR, shit that's inevitably made it into games like Final Fantasy XIV, and a lot of, it's almost a standard thing now. It's no longer quality of life. It's, hey, you have to have a queue in your game. You have to. Which I think is bullshit. But it inspired the already cancerous culture that we live in today of instant gratification, which is not just due to video games, but it's because of technology, how readily available information is, which is kind of funny and ironic considering we live in a time and a day and age where technology is easier to get and more accessible information's more accessible than it's ever been in the history of humankind, yet there are more ignorant and fucking stupid people these days than there were when, you know, half the population couldn't even read. That's my opinion anyway. But instant gratification has become rampant. If you look at a game like Vanilla WoW, where for the most part, most players, unless they got into raiding, which was not an easy feat to get into, and even if you did, because the raid size were so huge, having any epic gear was fucking rare. It was a rare thing in vanilla. A little more common in BC, but still pretty rare. Most people were running around in blue gear most of the time, and it sufficed. But now, you look at retail WoW now, which I haven't played since, you know, early Legion, but they still have just gear raining down on you. Purple gear raining down on you. It means nothing. It's fucking meaningless. Even legendaries in the game are meaningless. They don't mean jack diddly shit. And most other MMOs follow suit. While you look back, and you'd get, if you found a good item, even like a green item in Vanilla WoW, right? Or a tinkerable, you may not know what that is, but a tinkerable item in Asheron's Call, and you find one off of a kill, it was quite, you know, a dopamine delivering experience. And you didn't need to have this casino slot machine of, you know, digging through a sea of purples to find one that's good, and it doesn't really matter when you get it anyway, because, you know, Dick Butt next to you picked up the same piece, but his Warforged or Titan Forged or whatever. The instant gratification mixed with RNG is a fucking problem. And it's, again, a focus on the destination. Gear has become a means to an end instead of an accomplishment itself in a lot of these games, and the gear treadmill repeats. Which, again, because we're so focused and developers are so focused on the destination rather than the journey, the gear itself that you get has to reset on a gear treadmill. And even Final Fantasy XIV is guilty of this. And in order to keep it fair, have a level playing field, quote unquote, every patch that comes out with the new gear comes a catch-up mechanic or a catch-up dungeon, so that if you didn't bother doing any of the hard content in the previous patch, you can just skip all of it. Fuck it. Which I think is cancerous as fuck. That needs to go away. If you earn something, you shouldn't just be able to just skip it. Take a perfect example of the right way to do this is you look at Burning Crusade of World of Warcraft. If you started playing WoW in Burning Crusade, right? You didn't play vanilla, you started in Burning Crusade, you finally get to level 70, and let's say that Sunwell had just barely come out. If you wanted to get into the highest tier raid in the game, you'd have to join a guild, you have to get attuned, you have to get dungeon blues first and some crafted gear and grind out crafted gear, which still will just barely get you into Karazhan. Then after Karazhan, you know, you'd go to Gruul's Lair and then Magtheridon, and then after that you'd go to Serpent Shrine Cavern, then Tempest Keep, or, you know, whichever order those two go, and I can't remember. Then Black Temple. Then you were geared enough and strong enough to do Sunwell. People are like, yeah, but that took too long. Well, fuck you. You know, it's part of the journey. You're robbing yourself of that entire experience if you can hit 70. Oh, look, this quest, you know, that takes me 2 days to do gave me all the gear that let me skip all the way to the end. Might as well. It's basically like slapping a fucking game genie on the game and just using a cheat code. And not only does it do that, but it devalues the accomplishments of everyone around you. And I know you might be thinking, you know, a couple of you fucking cucks out there might be going, it's just a video game, it doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does matter. Like, what's the point of a game at all? To get enjoyment, right? What if you work really hard for something in a game because it's a passion of yours, and then somebody else who doesn't really give a shit and is casual as fuck can just skip right to where you are? It means you wasted your time. And it's funny because people say, oh, it's just a video game. Okay, well, how would you feel if your passion was repairing and remodeling and you know, bringing an old car back to life, getting a classic car and rebuilding it, and someone else comes along and goes, wow, you did a really good job on this car. You spent years and time and you spent money refurbishing this car. And but you know what I did? I just I wanted to refurbish a car too, and I just went on eBay and just bought one that's already refurbished. And you know what? I did all the work too. I did just as much work as you, and I spent a quarter of what you did. I mean, you'd be pissed. You would be pissed. Or like an analogy I used in one of my other videos. What if you worked your ass off at becoming really, really good at a musical instrument, and then some little pussy starts complaining so much, some little unique snowflake starts complaining so much that it's not fair that they have to spend as much time as you did learning that instrument. They just want to be good at it right now. And so the company releases a version of that instrument that they can just press a button on it and it instantly sounds, and they play it the same way you do. They don't even have to play it, but they sound just as good as you. If someone was listening, couldn't see you guys actually playing, but was listening to you and listening to them, they couldn't tell the difference of who was better. That's horseshit. It devalues. It doesn't matter that it's in a video game. It doesn't matter what context you're speaking in. In real life, guys, it doesn't work. In real life, you can't skip the struggle and the journey to get to the end and get the reward. Life doesn't work that way. And in the MMO genre, it didn't used to work that way, but it fucking clearly does now. Which kind of leads me in to my next point, and something that I find quite interesting when I looked into it a little deeper and I really gave it some thought, which is, you may wonder, technology has only gotten better since the late 90s. What PCs are capable of today far surpasses, everything that PCs could do in 2004 and 2003 and 1998, 1999. The graphics, the voice acting, so many things have gotten so much better. Yet, all the aspects of what made MMOs great has gotten so much worse. And you start to think, well, what's contributing to that? If you look at the MMOs of Gen 1 and Gen 2 and even early Gen 3, the developers of these games were very limited on what they could do with the technology of the time. I mean, this is a perfect example. If you want to look at what machines are capable of now, my graphics card in my computer right now is more powerful than my entire PC was back then, by a significant margin. So I believe that developers had to overcome these obstacles of technology with good gameplay, depending on the genre, narrative, immersion, music. They had to overcome these obstacles. I mean, still to this day, some of the best games of all time were on, and still considered the best games of all time, and are still continuously replayed, are games that were on the Super Nintendo, the original PlayStation, archaic old systems. Games like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, 8, 9, Super Metroid. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. There's so many good games. But they overcame these technological obstacles with the journey of the game itself. And things have kind of fallen by the wayside these days, because in our society, in our world now of, PC culture, pound me too, and, shareholder appeasement and exploit the developers' exploitive nature of, tapping into people's gambling addictions. It's all about money now, when in the past, these classics and these great games in the past made mountains of money, but they made it off of the success and the quality of their work, as opposed to schemes and tricks and trying to appeal to everyone. We have such good technology now with what our computers are capable of, the gaming worlds you can build with the engines like Unreal 4 and so on. The complex coding that can be put in to make boss mechanics or other things to make games look very immersive and real. But along the way, the PC culture and the need to not offend anyone, and the need to have everyone on a level playing field, and to make it impossible for anyone to be better than anyone else, to time gate things, to stretch content out much longer so less money has to be put towards development, has really burned not just the MMO genre, but gaming as a whole. I mean, just look around. So much shit, so many shit games get put out, it boggles my mind. So many, pay-to-win schemes and cash shop schemes and false advertising companies get away with. It completely blows me away. Like when a good game comes out that's legitimately good and holds its own weight on its own merits, and that's the reason why it's successful. Games like The Witcher 3, The Last of Us. Again, I'm not just going to go, but it's much harder for me to think of these games. To think of games released in the last decade that are worth fucking jack shit. And it's even harder when you try to think of MMOs released in the last decade that are worth jack shit. I mean, even Final Fantasy XIV, while it tried something different with 1.0, was a complete shit show. And developers have really lost touch. And I'm not even going to say lost touch with what their players want, because that's a known fact. We don't need to go into that. But they've lost touch in what the genre is supposed to be. What MMOs are supposed to be about. Which is the journey and not the destination. Which I went into a little bit on my video months ago entitled Endgame Needs to Die. But it gets exhausting, guys. It gets fucking exhausting. And WoW Classic has reminded even me what is missing from the MMO genre right now. And why, again, I really hold out hope that not Blizzard, because Blizzard's a lost fucking cause at this point, but another company will see the success and the hype over WoW Classic and go, what made these games so good? What made this game so good, and why are people going back to it? And it's because WoW Classic and all of the MMOs before World of Warcraft Vanilla in 2004 were about the journey. We're about going to another world and just being plopped down and saying, okay, go, have fun. Whatever that means. Like, you're going to die a lot. This world's dangerous. You can find lore if you want. It's hidden in there. You can get some context, but your story is yours. The game doesn't dictate what your story is going to be. There aren't rails that you're on. There's not weekly and daily fucking lockouts that tell you how strong you can get in any, given time frame. It was, you can become as strong as you want, as fast as you want. If you dedicate more time, just like in real life, you put in more effort, you dedicate more time, you're naturally going to get farther quicker. You're going to have a natural advantage over people that don't do that. And you go back into the complaint a lot of people have. Well, I have a job. I have a fucking job, bitch. I work 44 hours a week, sometimes 50, not counting making YouTube videos and taking care of an elderly dog and a lot of other. I got an adult responsibilities, bitch. Well, I have kids. Oh, I don't have kids, but thank God. But okay, that was a personal life choice you made. That's fine. If you have a job, you have a really busy life. You work 80 hours a week. You have children. You got to take them to school. You got to do ball games. You got to, do all this other shit. You got to try to get over your, you're sitting in the corner trying to get over your deep, dark memories of the time Uncle Tom molested you at the family picnic. Fine. Maybe the MMO RPG genre isn't for you. Or maybe the shitty MMOs are for you that cater to the fact that you don't have enough time. There are other games out there, single player games, even multiplayer games like Destiny and Destiny 2 and, Division and shit like that you can play online and still get to the end game, quote unquote, pretty quickly with the limited time that you have. But I long for a game that if I so choose, I can no-life the shit out of it and have an advantage. If I choose not to, great. Only invest as much time as you are willing to invest, which is completely, completely fair. But don't expect to invest 1 hour a week in an online game, 1-2 hours, and expect to be competitive in PvP and have the same gear, PvE gear, as, some no-life neckbeard that, puts in 6 hours a day. That's just fucking life, bitches. You need to get over it. That's how life works, and it's how the MMO genre used to work. And it's been lost. It's been lost over time because the focus has become the destination, which completely makes leveling is now useless because you don't even think about it. You just level. I just gotta level. I gotta not, gotta get through leveling as fast as I can, not pay attention to everything, not read anything, just skip everything, skip. I gotta get to the end. Because then I can actually play the game. No, that needs to go away. When I was leveling in Asheron's Call back in 1999, 2000, 2001, I wasn't thinking, the level cap back then was 126. I never logged in once thinking, okay, I gotta get to 126. I gotta get to 126. Because then I can actually, get this or go here or go to this. No, it was, what am I going to do today? I know I'm going to go try to hunt for some of these rare armor items for the shadow armor in this really dangerous area. I'm going to go out there. And the first couple times I went out there, get my ass handed to me, and I have to make corpse runs to try to get it back. But it was a lot of fun. Asheron's Call had a new patch every month that added more discoverable lore, but added new monsters, made certain areas more dangerous, added some new dungeons that this is before data mining, you had to go find. You had to go out there and find them. I still remember one time a buddy of mine were running around trying to finish a quest for a sword that he had been working on building. And we were running out in this area that we were, it's kind of a dangerous area, but we had been there several times. We knew our way around. And it was the day after the patch came out, come around a corner, there's this big new golem creature that hadn't been in the game before. We're like, oh shit, wonder what he drops. Let's kill him. And he pushed our shit in. He beat us like we were little redheaded stepchildren, man. And we were laughing our asses off. We were swearing. It was a good time. Organic experiences happen. And that's what creates memories in MMOs. If you think back, if you're an old school WoW player, if you played any Gen 1 or Gen 2 MMOs, I bet you when you think back on the best times and even the worst times in that game, it had nothing to do with hey, I beat this one boss, or hey, I, got this one piece of armor. It was the organic experiences the world created for you. The times you can look back on with your buddies you played that with and laugh your ass off, or, sometime you hunted down this guy that ganked you over and over and you finally got him, you finally killed him. Shit like that. That was the shit that made up those games. I know that this video is really going on and I'm starting to ramble at this point, but I'm going to end this video with this. What does an MMO that's not out yet need to truly be an MMO worth playing to the point to where it's the only game that you really think is worth investing your time in? You're not, because these days it's so easy to bounce around between multiple games because games get old fast, and maybe part of that is that we're getting older. But I still think that if there was a game like a Gen 1 or a Gen 2 game that came out, it would hold people's attention far longer than anything else, and it would become your main and probably only game. So what does an MMO, in my opinion, need to be like that? Well, first off, in my opinion, the world needs to be dangerous. The world needs to be the focus of the game. I know that these days it's data mining and shit like that. It's pretty unavoidable for the most part, except for Final Fantasy XIV still manages to do it. for the most part. Some shit gets leaked, but for the most part, people don't know all the details of what's in a patch. If Square doesn't want them to know the details of that patch, they don't know until patch day, until it gets revealed by the company itself. But character customization needs to come back. No more of this. I mean, look at retail WoW and their talent trees. It's so vanilla, so fucking boring, so fucking white bread. And everyone's gonna pick the same thing. If you're an unholy death knight, every other unholy death knight in the game is gonna be 100% exactly like you. Choice is gone, and they tried to replace it with the illusion of choice and a smokescreen, but we all see right through it. But you look at like Asheron's Call. You built your character based on what skills you wanted. And those are the skills you focused on. One character running around with a sword is not the same as another character running around with a sword. They were probably vastly differently spec'd in so many different areas, but I digress. True character customization needs to come out, which brings with the risk you may gimp your character. And you know what? That's fucking fine. We make a lot of choices in real life where we gimp ourselves. I know I have. Getting married was one. But anyway, it needs to have character customization, full character control. As I said again, the world needs to be dangerous. When expansions get released, expansions need to not make a new zone that completely nullifies and makes the other zones irrelevant. Asheron's Call managed to avoid this when they added new continents in their first expansion, Dark Majesty. EverQuest largely managed to overcome this. I wasn't huge into EverQuest, so I don't know exactly how, but I know the main world didn't become irrelevant. Asheron's Call did it by still making some of the best shit in the game and the most dangerous places in the game still being updated to old parts of the world. Right? So the world needs to not become irrelevant. The gear treadmill needs to go away. Gear should be important, but not end-all be-all, and the only point of doing anything in the game is to get gear so you can start all over again when the next patch comes out. Large sections of my higher levels of Asheron's Call, I had the same gear. And I had a couple different sets for different situations that I built out, which is the whole point. You can have a focus on narrative, but don't make it a single player experience when it comes to narrative. I don't think your character... I think it's better when your character is not the main hero or the main champion. That needs to go away. It's just stupid. And it has a place, but in my opinion, its place isn't in the MMO genre. And that's my opinion. Because then when you're the hero, you know, you're the hero and you're like, yeah, I did this, and all the NPCs are calling me a hero. And then you walk out and then a guy standing next to you named Butt Farts McDickhead is also a hero with your same title. It devalues everything. Open world PvP needs to be a thing in almost every MMO. I mean, I'm fine with there being servers where it's not, but there need to be the main priority of, you know, a server to have open world PvP. And make PvE and PvP content have the gear you get from both. In fact, in my opinion, I think organized PvP like Battlegrounds is fine, but organized PvP like Arena, I think that shit's dumb, and it's ultimately what ruined PvP balance in WoW, in my opinion. So I think arena-based PvP is... I don't like it. I don't think it needs it. People may disagree with me, but I don't think it needs it, because then that also encourages esports, which encourages bringing in more players in scummy ways from other genres like Call of Duty and shit like that, and I don't like that. But one of the greatest things about PvP and like Dark Age Camelot, which in my opinion is probably the best PvP MMO ever made, is the gear you got where you go that made you stronger, that you go fuck people up. You didn't get from PvPing necessarily, you got it from PvE, which meshed the worlds together really well. So I don't even necessarily think PvP needs a very direct reward system in and of itself. The reward, in my opinion, in PvP is just kicking someone's ass, taking some territory. Like the reward in PvP in Dark Age of Camelot was when you would control locations, it buffed your entire faction. in PvP and PvE. That's a pretty big enough reward for me. And it brings with you some faction pride, if you know what I mean. Anyway, and I know a lot of you, but I'm coming to touchy territory when I'm talking about PvP and reward systems, and I know a lot of you disagree, and that's completely fine. So if you have a different opinion, please leave it below. But I think instance-based things, the theme park MMO in general needs to not be a thing anymore. Open, dangerous worlds with maximum customization for characters, much like Dungeons and Dragons. Those are the main things that need to happen. Your decisions with what you do, not necessarily with NPCs in the game, but what you do with other players in the game should determine the game's story, should determine the game's direction, should determine the impact you have on the game world. Not some instance that shows up and changes the world because you did a quest, and then it's going to look that way for everybody once they do that quest. I think that's cheap. Anyway, guys, I know I've been rambling on for about 30-40 minutes here, so I'm going to end this video. But this is something I wanted to talk about with the whole mindset of destination versus the journey. We need to go back to focusing on the journey. And this applies to our lives too. If you focus so much on the destination, thinking that once you reach that destination, you'll be happy and that's where the fun and excitement begins, I'm telling you right now from experience, you're wrong. You're fucking wrong. And the journey is what it's all about, my friends. Anyway, guys, this has been Raziel. Give me your thoughts and opinions down below. Apologies for the length of the video, but I felt it was something I needed to talk about. As always, guys, I'm reminding you now, my streaming schedule has changed. The updated times are in my About section and also on my actual Twitch channel on my offline screen. But I am now streaming Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and Friday mornings. Saturday is no longer a thing. But guys, if you want to come shoot the shit with me, we have discussions like this all the time on my streams. Come follow me and hang out. Right now I'm playing Final Fantasy 14 and I'm fucking around with Classic WoW, and I'm keeping my eye on Arc Age Unchained as well. But do you guys think we'll ever see a modern looking with the modern mechanics MMO in the future that is more like Gen 1 or Gen 2 and less like Gen 3? But put your opinions down below, guys. Thank you so much for the support lately. And as always, my fucking friends, keep it real.